Welcome, everybody, to the 313th episode of Rideshare Rodeo podcast and the second one of 2024. I am super excited to be joined by a co-host this week, not a guest, and I'll explain that in a second. But my co-host this week is Holly Camp, who is also Savvy Shopper Delivers on YouTube. And if you guys are not familiar, I have put out a couple things on the audio podcast. And I'm sure some of you might have even checked out her channel. But if you haven't yet, she's super close to 1K. So if you guys could help kick her over the edge there. I know a lot of you don't go to YouTube, but I have noticed that some people emailing me are not stalkers, but they like to come and check out some things on YouTube. They just don't comment. And I'm sure Holly will find that. I'm sure you'll understand that too. These are people, by the way, a lot of the audio podcast listeners, I get people writing in all the time who used to go to YouTube or used to do this. And now they just find it more relaxing just to listen to the podcast because they feel like anytime they go over and are listening to something that they're interested in on YouTube, it turns into a fight they don't understand. And that's the weird thing, is that it's not even like, like a lot of YouTube people prefer the drama. These people don't prefer it. They don't care if like a little has to be spilled to keep it real. But it's like, imagine if you never were on YouTube and you tuned into somebody's channel that has some drama, but they're also dropping some nuggets of information, and you're trying to pick up those nuggets, but then in the middle, like just some random BS drama that you and I are familiar with starts happening, and the person trying to like get some information is like, wait, what? Who? What? I thought we were talking about something. Why are two people yelling at each other now?
Right. Well, definitely, I think you get more of the drama on YouTube than you're going to get in the podcast world. Because,
Yeah.
well, for one, we have all these comments. So every keyboard king out there wants to put their opinion in, whether they're educated about whatever the topic is or not. So
And I think I like that though, because here on the audio podcast, a lot of people still do email me, but I feel like if you're going to sit down and write an email, you might go back and even correct something. It's not like you're just, some people,
right.
But some people write really long emails to me, and, I can tell that, they probably went back and changed something as they kept going, which I think is different than a YouTube comment. YouTube is done in the heat of the moment. Like, but I feel like I do feel for him, is what I guess what I'm saying, because I feel like if you are coming in and like you see the title of this podcast and you're like, I want to see what's going on with, is the golden age of delivery, food and grocery, and what's going on in the EU, and you want to hear about that. Of course, like, you're cool with some anecdotes, some jokes, this and that and the other, but you don't want to hear two people bickering, especially if you don't even understand what it's about. Right. I mean, even if you did, you probably don't. Some people might not care, but like, because a lot of people do say they like the audio podcast to sound real, but it's like, or anything like that, even a YouTube podcast, but they just need to, I think creators always need to remember that, think of it like somebody's watching for the first time every time. Like, you just can't start having your normal conversations and branch off. I've even done this before. I start talking about something too familiar, and then I've had people email me and say, you were explaining this, and this, and then you jumped over to something. It was like going from like a level 1 class to a level 5 class, and I didn't understand. And so then it actually helps me, because I go back, instead of just having haters go, you suck or something on YouTube, and it's like, okay. Like, I don't know, at least it's these people are sitting in their car, they're driving, they're listening. If they actually take the time to make a comment, that means that the comment's so important, they're not doing it while they're like watching on YouTube in the moment. They're doing it after the fact.
Well, the drama usually doesn't come from the content creator and the audience so much as the audience against each other, even. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When the comments, they get going back and forth, and that's where a lot of the drama comes from. But I know you and I, on our other show that we're together, We tend to get off topic once in a while, because you start talking about something else, and then before you know it,
Topic great. I do
happens.
it all the time. To be honest, like off topic's great because I think that sometimes you're talking about something, and that's what I like about the podcast. I don't like to be so rigid I can't break my mold, but because sometimes you organically step to the side. I just mean if you do that, like we do on the other show that you're talking about, that you need to let the audience should be able to organically follow it, I guess is what I'm
Right.
saying. We go off topic and start talking about something, we should, if it just kind of like something sets a keyword, sets it off, and we start talking at least a minute in or something, you need to go back and revisit and say, for those of you not familiar, what we're discussing is
right. We don't want to talk about something
and that never happens.
That only you and I know about. That would, yeah. Something.
And that never happens on YouTube. I always see it like, man, you gotta, if you're looking to grow, you gotta always think of everybody as a first-time listener. Can't treat everybody like the regulars, or else you'll never have a growth. But back to the Holly thing. I do want to say that Holly's a friend. She's a co-host, not a guest, because we do another collaboration like she was talking about called the Dumpling Difference Discussion on her YouTube channel. And I'm sure we're trying to figure out the first one, getting back after the new year. Last year was tough, and trying to find some schedule to that. So I don't know. One will be dropping in January, if not in the next few weeks, I'm sure. But yeah, so check that out on Holly's channel, and her link to her channel will be in the show notes, you guys. But before we get into some of these topics, I guess, like, Holly, this is the last time I'm saying it too, like, Happy New Year, because I'm done with I don't really know when you're supposed to stop saying Happy New Year, but I'm over it.
Right. It's the 7th. It's been a week.
Is that what it is? Okay. Is it a week? I don't know.
Sure, we'll make it that way.
Well, I mean, I just noticed, like, around a couple days ago, I was like, I'm sick of saying, why am I still saying this? I get that I haven't said it to some people.
I don't even think I've said it to anybody.
Well, Happy New Year.
Well, thanks. Happy New Year to you. See, now you can be the first one and only one I've said it
to. So I guess before we get into these topics, because maybe it'll even play into this, is like, let's just stick with food and grocery, because I know you do a lot of that stuff. Like, year over year, I know we were all struggling, the gig economy and the oversaturation. I know that you guys in Florida are, even though you're not having some of the number of illegal problems on the platform, you still are, but not as many as some other cities. You're still facing an oversaturation rates like we are that are simply ridiculous. I mean, who knows how long it'll last, but there was a video last night from my friend Van, who does delivery out here, that said he's stopping gig work.
Really?
I don't know if that'll last or whatnot, but he's just said, listen, it's dead. Now, again, Van could change his mind this morning. I don't know. Right. He often does, and I don't think that's even mean of me to say. It's just a fact. But, like, for me, I'm not, because the growth of the gig economy is there. It's just, it's not going to be like what, again, I think you've even heard me say this. It kills me that we have never defined the gig economy. Here we are writing legislation about it in every damn state on a federal level. I don't know, like, I did a 13 minutes yesterday that, this Julie Sue thing. I mean, like, she's literally, they're breaking the Constitution right now. Her and the current administration, they want her so bad that they cannot get her confirmed. So they're just trying to, like, break the Constitution.
Right. And just keep her as they want.
Right. But I mean, like, it was pointed out, like, in September last year, no, you can't classify it as this. It's actually this. And yes, it is a thing. And here it is. And it's called this, the Classification Act. And so now they were supposed to go by those 10 days. And now we're past that. and the second round, and now they've started the second 118th Congress. Well, she's not even supposed to be in the room, and she's making decisions. Like, they literally made one in California. So I know I don't want to throw people off too much, but I need to hit on this independent contractor thing because I talked about it this week. And so some of you might think, well, what's wrong with this? But here's a problem. So already, the day this got filed on the 4th, the 4-page document, which is in the show notes, it's also in the 13 show notes, against the Biden administration, and to end this immediately and select a new person to try and nominate because their own party can't get it through. And oddly, if the president and the Senate are the same party, which they are, and the president has a Secretary of Labor nominee, not since 1856 has that person not been able to get their secretary or the labor secretary passed by their own party. They can't get her passed by her own party.
Right.
So clearly, I mean, she lost $32 billion for California. I mean, clearly during the pandemic, no doubt. Like, some people never saw their pandemic money. And she was labor secretary then. Biden thought, hey, let's take her. She was the biggest failure during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's
he
what
picked
I don't
the biggest
get.
failure.
She has all her own party against her, yet Biden continues to be for her. And it's like, I don't understand why he's not getting it. Why someone hasn't said, hey, look, this is why.
Because nobody else at all, even on that side, is as pro-union as Julie. I mean, she's as pro-union as Joe is.
But he can't just choose on that one.
Oh, I mean, he absolutely can.
Well, he absolutely is, but I mean,
because in a perfect world, both of these guys see eye to eye, and that's a tough thing. And actually, it's a bad thing too. I think that you want people with mixed opinions having those final discussions, because there might be a missed point. These two see eye to eye. In their world, there would be no way any of us could earn on our own free will. We would have, maybe there could be some alterations to jobs, but you would have a W-2 job with a W-2 check. You would absolutely be in a union, and you would 100% pay union fees. And that's what both of them want for every single American, which is now 65 million plus are self-employed, freelancers, independent contractors, gig app workers, whatever. That's 40% of the American workforce. I mean, and again, like you just said, like, how can he pick her? Yeah, she was the biggest failure. So there's two reasons. One, she's as pro-union as him. Two, I feel like in California, I feel like you can be a failed politician and still make it to the federal level. I don't know why. California has, it has the most points when it comes to voting. It carries so much weight that, I mean, like, look at what we saw. I mean, like, Karen Anderson points out every, the Bina Duvall's, the Union Busters, the Gavin. I mean, their whole state is corrupt. Newsom. I mean, it just is like a nasty group of people. People talk about the extreme left and like up in New York, and I'm like thinking, dude, the whole state of California is that way.
He's going to find a way to keep her in there until he's not in office anymore, is what it seems like, because he keeps.
Well, yeah, but I mean, now there's a Supreme Court constitutional challenge too.
There is.
That's what the 4-page. Yeah, so the day after so what she ended up doing. It's not the amounts either, you guys. It's the fact that this was done. So there was a group of construction workers that had a claim in, and until the DOL rule change took place, this could not be paid. But when the second Congress started that afternoon, they fined this company, which this is the biggest thing they broke, because until the official rule change is made, which Julie cannot make unless she's confirmed. Unless Julie Sue is confirmed, she cannot make that final decision for the rule change. They won't confirm her. They do want to get that passed, but as soon as they started that 118th Second Congress, that same day, the company got filed. That was a construction company, and here's what happened. All these people had put in bids for what they were going to charge to do projects on a construction site, okay? And the whole amount of money was like $800,000 in payout to like many employees or many contract workers, or I don't know, 500,000. I can't remember. Somewhere it was a big, but not like into the, nothing like crazy, but they had to pay. So what they did is they took 8-hour work days. First of all, how are you taking 8-hour work days against construction workers who did a bid? Sometimes construction workers work 14 hours in a day and it rains the next day and they work 1.
Right.
I mean, construction workers they're bidding the job. Look, I might get screwed on this, but $100,000. It's not about this is my hourly. So what they did was
right.
But what they did, what Julie and see, this is how ugly this year could get, because what they did was take the bid and anything over the 8 hours that they could document. And they actually did things like lunchtime. They were like, you're owed a lunch. You're owed, they started adding in all this money, and these were all the fines. And now everybody's getting like $5,000 extra as like a bonus that none of them even deserve. Even some of the workers are in on this lawsuit, even though they got the money, saying, what the hell are you talking about? I made a bid. That's all I wanted. I was paid correctly. Leave me alone. I paid my taxes.
Right. But that's the owner of the construction. I mean, it's not.
No. Those are the people who bid the job saying, no, this guy, I work with this guy all the time. He's great.
That's what I'm saying. But the people that bid the job aren't the 40 construction workers. It's the guy that runs the construction company. He does the bid. It's not that you know what I mean? If a job takes 40
right, but then he still has to pay those people correctly. The problem is correct. That all that money just went. But again, it wasn't like the government can't trickle past like the owner of one company. They have to give all that money to that owner and think, okay, you distribute it.
Agree.
So the problem there is probably never even gets to the workers' hands anyway. I mean, like maybe legally or whatnot, but that my guess is like once that happens, the construction company becomes like, and we've seen this happens all the time. The construction company says, well, definitely can't afford to have this many workers. And so immediately, 10%, 15% are let go. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the government stepping in, but I'm also I guess what I'm trying to get across is that I'm also not a big fan of recognizing that most people don't want the government to step in and being corporations that would so abuse that it's not even questionable. You know what I mean? Well, you and I both know we work gig apps for companies that we both know definitely walk that line every day of employee independent contractor and tweaking it out to their advantage on both ends.
Right. But I think when people choose to do this, either, especially those of us like you and I that choose to do it full time, we know what we're getting into when we do this. We don't go into this expecting that we're going to get the benefits that a W-2 person has, and we're okay with that, or we wouldn't be doing this. And right. That's what the government needs to realize. We don't want to be employees. If we did, we'd go get a W-2.
Yeah, and that's and that's why, as we start to see all these, because over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about a lot of states. I got Mike Karubi on the 22nd, and we're going to be talking about some of the pushes beyond gig work in some states for just against all independent contractors that will absolutely affect gig workers. My own state is facing some reform. We're learning about more and more and more. Minnesota's is still pushing that hard. There's just so many states, you guys, that are looking at things. And to be honest, there's one state, the Utah has a gig worker Senate bill. So it's SB 233. And so what this one is, I actually really love this. I need to look into it some more. I remember seeing it way back when, because it's been around since probably about last 9 months or something. Can't remember when it was voted in, but they're now really pushing it finally to actually be played out. You know, it's been implemented, but basically, instead of saying, again, this is where the biggest problem I think with the gig economy happens. I always say this is that I don't understand why would somebody not want to say, okay, here's traditional gig work, here's writers, here's freelancers, here's self-employed, here's business owners, all that kind of stuff like we know. Now, here's the hybrid model. How are we going to handle this? Because one of the biggest things that people fight about in all these states that are going to have legislation are the fact that we don't have any benefits. And yet the craziest part to me, and this does just literally blow my mind, is that none of these states are pushing for benefits. In the arguments, they're saying, listen, these drivers have nothing when they're done. They have no retirement, blah, 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 blah. But then when they push their legislation, there's nothing about benefits in it. I mean, even California's was just weak, but this Utah bill is actually removing all of the other crap and just saying, no, you're right, we should focus on benefits only.
Well, as you learned, and I learned in August when we had your town hall, when you did the town hall in Colorado, the legislators know nothing about the gig economy. They're out there voting on things that they know nothing about, which you were lucky enough to get to educate one of your.
I mean, to be fair, while you're on that point, though, I mean, can you? I'm just, and this isn't to either party or anything. That's why I'm interjecting it here, because you guys got to understand. Of course, they don't. I mean, like, look, no senator knows everything on every topic. Like, you can't be talking about nuclear engineering and what do we need to do in the state, and he's supposed to know. They have expert witnesses. They have people who work for them. They have, like people who like go do all the research and then are an assistant to them, and they get a 5-minute brief right before they walk into a meeting. So part of it is, I mean, it's not like they're just like, dude, I don't care. It's and I think Holly was heading this way. I'll let her get back to it, but like until they start hearing from people, and that's the problem. Even Kim Cavan said this, that once they start hearing from people, it's never the people that are happy. It's the people that are pissed off and want something done. And therefore they hear from about 2-3% of the workers, and they think that that's what everybody wants.
Right. Well, and that's why we all need to be a little louder and get our voices heard, so they know exactly what's going on, exactly what we deal with on a daily basis, and what we actually do want as a whole, and not just these little bitty people over here that, the tiny sliver of gig workers that want to be employees.
Right. And those people, the ones who end up writing in, are so bitter because they probably just come from W-2 mindset. I've had enough independent contractor years, even outside of outside of app-based gig work, where I know that, like, hey, you're bidding things, you're doing tours, you're doing this. So sometimes you might have a down spell or what. So you got to balance it's different. So a lot of these people come in, they've never had true independent contractor training or never really did kind of anything in that realm until they were told they're one in this realm. And in this realm, I don't think like what I know of an independent contractor from all my years doing production and working for several companies too. And that's why it's needed. I have a much different definition than I think most people. If you hadn't done any and you just weren't in IC for the gig apps, I don't think you truly have an understanding of what it is.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, it's not just DoorDash and Instacart. I mean, there's nurse anesthetist, there's
Right.
plumbers, there's so
No, I
many.
know, but I think the gig app people, and I'm not trying to diminish it, I was trying to put it very politely, but I think a lot of them, if they haven't worked IC, think that it is just, oh, that means you can work whenever you want. That is not what an independent contractor is.
It's part of it, but it certainly is not.
Well, but sometimes it's not part of it too. I'm an independent contractor for a laser company. They might say, hey, here's the bid, but we need you for 2 months in Europe. I just lost, not only do I not have flexibility, I just lost 2 months of or 2 months of complete not flexibility. You're going to do exactly this. Okay.
But I guess you have the flexibility to say yes or no that you want that or you don't want that without necessarily losing your job.
Without repercussion either. Like there's no, if I don't take a bid, there's nothing bad comes back on me.
Right. So I guess that's what I meant really when I said that. But
but yeah, I just feel like a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of ways to this, but it's not just flexibility. But on the Utah thing, so instead of pushing that everybody should be paid 50 cents an active minute like New York, and that's actually something that Colorado's looking at now too. I hate this. Because I know this is going to fail. We all know this is going to fail. But instead of looking at like I don't know. I feel like looking at 50 cents with inflation, with the economy, with everything, like what is making a term like 50 cents an active minute really do in the big picture in 3 years for you? Nothing, except for potentially even holds you down more. Because now you've established this horrible amount that you have to go back and renegotiate.
New York has been doing that for how long?
Well, I mean, this has been a long time coming, but it's been in place since December 8th or something.
Oh, just this past December?
Yeah, but Rideshare was doing it first about 2 years ago. I was 3 years ago.
This took place a long time ago.
No, this is for food delivery though. For food delivery now, it's 50 cents an active minute.
Oh.
So a few things are happening. First of all, they've laid off about 20% of the DoorDashers. They also now are doing the same thing they did with Rideshare. They're competing for blocks. So there's block selection day.
What do you mean they laid off the DoorDash workers? You mean they deactivated them?
No, I mean, well, now there's caps. Everybody just can't be on anymore. I mean, you couldn't anyway because of Dash Now, but even like the city, let's say that Dash Now in New York City allows, in Manhattan at any given time, allows 5,000 people. Okay. And any more than that, like let's say they're all top dashers, they can dash anytime they want. Any more than that, like a bottom feeder dasher can't dash now because that 5,000 is their number. But now the comptrollers of New York have stepped in and said, well, wait a minute. It's actually more like 2,500. You can't have more than 2,500 on it at a time. So they've taken DoorDash's numbers and say, no, we don't like those. Bring them down. You got too many people working.
So how did DoorDash address that? Because they can't really lay them off. So how did they?
Because they're moving to the block system. The block system is, is it platinum is the top one or diamond?
Because I don't pay attention because I'm never over 20%.
Okay, so it's like diamond or platinum. I think it's diamond. Yeah, it's diamond. And then there's top dasher, but they've removed top dasher because there was no reason for it, but in New York. But basically, like the more hours, I mean, I don't know their exact metrics, but for Rideshare, it was like the more hours, the tougher hours you work, all that led into when you could select your blocks. So like, are you in the first batch of people picking blocks, which would come out Sunday night at like, let's say midnight for Rideshare. And then Monday morning at like 10 a.m., they opened it up to the next block. And they just keep moving down the line to the point where the last 20%, there's nothing left and there's no Dash Now.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I understand how they do
So the bottom 20% just are seeing, yep, there's nothing for you this week. Nothing.
Right.
And I mean,
Right.
it says that there's no blocks available. You can't dash this week.
Well, it used to be here that I could dash now at any time. And over the last probably 2 to 3 months, it's not always available anymore, which is
No,
weird
I mean,
because
I don't know if you're a top. I'm not. I'm a.
no,
I'm
I'm never over. I think the highest I've ever been is maybe 32%, but I'm usually about 15 to 17%.
because I'm 12 right now, and I
Yeah.
barely do DoorDash. And I even like had
I do it
something better,
almost every day.
but I was just doing a little testing with it, recently, and I actually
Right.
brought it even down more. I thought I was going to bring it up a little bit. I was like,
Yeah.
nope.
Mine varies every day. It just depends on what kind of shit they're sending me for the day. I mean,
But
a
see,
few
look,
days ago I was at 9%. It's, I don't know, goes
but
up
see,
and
here,
down.
this is something I want to share because this is where, and we'll be talking about this again more over the year because a lot of the legislation, like I said, I'd like to be portable benefits, and we will get back to that in just a second. But what I wanted to say was that a lot of this so on DoorDash, you have 5 metrics in your ratings. You have customer rating, acceptance rating, completion rating, on time or early, and lifetime deliveries. So I want to read you guys my stats. I'm going to move the second one, acceptance rate, to the bottom because acceptance rate cannot be in this app and when we are independent contractors. And actually, a lot of the states are even pushing
Right.
for you can't use it as a metric, but you can't even show it to me, the dasher, because it could influence me to try and think I need to get it higher. So they even want the psychological part gone. So I'm going to move it to the bottom because when I read you the other stats, it's going to sound like I'm your perfect DoorDasher. But why I don't get orders will be that last number. So customer rating 4.98, completion rate 96%, on time or early 94%, lifetime deliveries 1221. Okay, so all that sounds pretty good, right? I sound like a good, solid stats guy. Acceptance rate 12%.
Yep.
And so therefore, the only metric they really care about is that acceptance rate. And they're not even supposed to be using it. And so I can never dash now. I mean, sometimes if it gets really busy, it'll let me dash now. But when I was doing original DoorDash testing for Para when we had tip transparency, Dash Now would let you dash now, and this is years ago, and you could just stay on the dash. Now, if it does get busy and it says and you get a little drop down saying you can dash now because your zone's busy, well, you can hit that, but it usually only gives you like a half hour to dash.
Right.
It'll then say, okay, like let's say it's 5:55. It'll say, okay, you can dash from 6 to 6:30. And the meaning there is that take that half hour block, and if it's still busy, we'll let you continue.
Mm-hmm. Right.
To me, that's look, I do, because I mean, trust me, I think that I'm not sure what the perfect solution is, but something about oversaturation needs to be done. I mean,
when I can't hit dash now here now, that's changed a little bit for me. I'm always able to get on within the hour. I never have to wait more than that. Yeah. So
like mine, I mean, like, I don't
just keep
know.
going back in and checking it, and they eventually don't let me in. It just
right. I guess what I was trying to point out with mine, I understand it's not just me because, I mean, look, so
I am in a large order program though.
look at that. That's the whole city of Denver right now at 11:54 a.m. on Sunday.
But I
Nothing.
can't see what you're showing me though.
It's all gray. There's nothing.
Oh, it's okay. It looks purple.
There's nothing even light pink. There's no action.
Oh, I
There's
see.
no orders. Even the Air Force Base, which you need clearance for, which always has a little surge going and always lets you dash now, that's turned off.
I saw the biggest promo money the other day that how they add on. It's usually like $2, $3 is usually the most I ever see is $3. It was $4.50 the other day. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I've never seen 450 on there.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes up in Summit County that's just based on, that's really just when they notice, we don't have enough people.
But in 3 years,
It's like
I've
their
never
fake
seen
way of surging. But back to the portable benefits, to be honest, when we start talking about the reform of legislation that we're going to talk about, you're going to be paid this much a minute. Oh, you're going to get this. If you guys notice in your states, because I'm looking through all these legislations, to be honest, if you look in almost every one of the states, they're all using this weaponized portable benefits, and that we don't have them yet in the legislation. There's nothing about them at all. It's about $1 amount on your minute, or let's pay you this, and how much can they tweak that to the littlest amount. Even the governments aren't really on your back. They don't really have your back. I mean, New York City saying that 50 cents an active minute on these platforms, DoorDash said that they would now optimize people on the platform at an average of 65% of their hour. Meaning that's why if you've seen in a lot of papers, if you saw like it was just under 18, it was like $17.96. Some of the articles read, and some of the articles read 50 cents a half hour. The reason you saw a lot of $18 an hour is because it's 65%. That's all you can make. And DoorDash said they won't optimize people over 65% in New York City. Part of the reason there was, and I mean, because there was a lot of more digging too, was that part of the reason there was and I've actually heard this from people, is they are very well aware that people will now go, well, I'm not going to drive, I'm going to walk, and I'm going to actually crawl. I'm going to take an hour to deliver this.
Right. Yep. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yep. Cold food, and they get the whole hour pay. So therefore they're like, it's almost like a penalization system. Like if you're not meeting it in the old, whatever that, people need to remember that they've got like years of data on us. They know from this restaurant to this house, in this traffic, on this type of weather, on this night, it should take you 17 minutes. If it's taking you 33.
That's what's going to happen, is that that's what the drivers will do that. And the companies will come back and say, okay, well, if you're not there at this time, they'll start deactivating people for that.
Right. Well, also, since they've kind of been moved into this false W-2 almost type setting, they could start going, well, we're not going to give you orders. Right. They'll never say it, but what I'm saying is they almost could say it. Well, yeah, we'll just start picking out people that are taking too long, but that's the W-2 mindset. But you're making us pay W-2 wages. Yeah. So my thing is, I mean, this is where the portable benefits comes in though, because the reason that wouldn't fly for them is because if they said you made us pay W-2 wages, they'll say, what are you paying in unemployment? And all these companies have to say zero. Right. And once that's said, it's like, well, then you're not paying W-2, so shut up. You're paying an agreed amount that is just way over the top ridiculous to try and punish you, that's hurting the drivers and the customers. And now here in Utah, they're doing the opposite. Instead of doing all the BS, because again, my biggest problem is, dude, make it $1 a minute. Yeah, that sounds really appealing. Oh my gosh, there's 60 minutes in an hour. I'll stay active every hour and I'll make $60 an hour. No, you won't. Dude, if you don't think they've got you down
the entire hour.
No, and even then it's gonna be like earned by time. It's gonna be like you're driving from New York City to Boston to deliver food.
Right.
What do you mean? Well, that's what we're gonna. I mean, like, you are now at their control. I don't know what the metrics will be for, because I know that they have a system kind of like California's, but I don't know if it's like exact, but like where if you pass on so many during an hour, your dash ends. However, your dash is then over for the entire block. So if you say, and they're like 6-hour blocks. So if you're signing up for 6-hour blocks in New York City, now it's different than before, because you're going to, when you're done signing up, you're going to go, okay, and see where's the flex time now too, because now you have a schedule now. You don't have to show to it, but if you don't, you don't get another dash block. You just lost a shift.
That's true, because since, like I said, since I can't dash now, I do go in there when I remember and schedule out as far as I can, and pick the hours that I know that I'm out every night.
Mm-hmm.
That's available. I mean, now if I haven't scheduled it a week out, all those hours aren't available. Maybe 5:30 to 8:30 is available instead of 5:30 to midnight or 3 a.m.
Right.
whatever. So I kind of have to, maybe take 2 hours here and then an hour here or whatever, and I kind of have to break it up. But
you can pause a dash too.
But yeah, if I'm late, that's the thing. You know me, I'm chronically late. That's just how I am. So if I've scheduled myself at 5 o'clock and
You start and pause.
Didn't get out of my house until 5:45, if you don't log on in that first half hour, then you lose it. Well, so then if I try and get on at 6 and I was supposed to be there at 5, then I can't get on. And so then it's almost like they punish me and they make me wait like 45 minutes to an hour before they'll be like, okay, we'll let you on now. And
right, but see, unlike you in Florida, though, in the New York market now you have regulators looking. So you have people saying, yeah, you can't have your 5,000 on. So you would never get that chance unless it's a scheduled block. Like Dash Now doesn't become a chance anymore. I think that's why they took away Top Dasher because in New York City, because they still have Diamond, I believe, but they took away Top Dasher because there is no Dash Now.
Well,
it's all scheduled. I mean, for somebody in the Diamond status, and if they really were like you said, it becomes like a red zone. But in New York, they have so many people wanting to work, and with the new cap, they've just got people bottlenecked. So it's not going anywhere. But these portable benefits, I got to say, before I forget to hit on this, because this is huge, guys. In my opinion, this is what every state needs, because this is honestly a concern of mine, even because, and I'll relate it to something actually a little political here without being party affiliated here in just a second. But to be honest, like, when let's say that, I mean, I know some people are like, I'm a lifer for gig work. Okay. Or, like maybe you worked doing whatever for a long time. Now you're going to do gig work until you're just done working, kind of thing. Like, well, where are your benefits? And that's become a concern of mine, because we talked about these portable benefits came about a couple of years ago, and then they just disappeared and just became a talking point for lawmakers and such. And now, it's like, well, you should have a way to pay into a system. And Utah's way is this bill, Senate Bill 233, where they're making the companies throw in, but the companies don't have to pay unemployment. So it's like the companies are getting off a little better than having.
What are they asking for in that bill? What, I didn't get to read that far into it, and I got interrupted. But
well, the bill's already passed.
The Utah bill?
Yeah.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, it was in it went into effect in May last year. However, they only rolled it out in 3 counties first. Now it's the whole state starting this year.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand that. I thought this was a new.
No. Yeah. So it says Utah Senate Bill 233, which went into effect in May 2023. But the Beehive state is just playing catch up to get it rolled out. So titled the Portable Benefits Plan, the measure ensures affordable insurance coverage for gig workers by allowing hiring platforms to contribute to contractors' insurance without entangling themselves in an old school employer-employee dynamic. It's not just another piece of legislation. It's a statement that Utah recognizes the need and challenges of its workers and is willing to break from the tradition to cater to them. This bill is Utah's clarion call for the rest of the nation. The future is here. Then it continues with, the brilliance of the legislation lies in its embrace of portable benefits plan. The traditional labor market had a one-size-fits-all model. So there, obviously, we're talking about W-2 benefits tied to employers in a world where an individual might be a Lyft driver by day, a freelance graphic designer by evening, and an Airbnb host by night. Such an old-fashioned model is not outdated, it's obsolete. What the portable benefits plan understands and what other states need to grasp is that the modern worker is multifaceted. They're not bound by one job, one title, or one role. They're fluid, dynamic, and flexible. And benefits should mirror this. By allowing contributions from hiring platforms without the strings of employer-employee relationship, Utah is pioneering a model that represents gig workers' independence while still ensuring their well-being. The support of this bill transcends political alliances. It is rooted in a deep-seated commitment to core principles the bill acknowledges not only as a significant nod of approval, but as a resounding affirmation that its provisions are in harmony with the fundamental values of liberty, adaptability, and forward thinking.
Okay, well, I heard a lot of, no offense, blah, 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 blah. Right. I want to know exactly what they're having them do. So what exactly are they contributing?
Well, and so that's what we would need to look up. So, but what they're, the main thing is what they're not having to do is the old school connection to the, directly to unemployment. It's more like, we'll need to figure out the number, but it's more like, hey, you just need to give here's what you need to match of the employee paying in on, and they'd have to run their numbers. But even these companies like this portable benefit type thing better than having to pay 50 cents a minute and those kind of things, because that creates a logistical nightmare they don't even want. Like they don't want to be figuring out, how do we pay these? Wait, what? But this is something they can get into, because this is something that's gonna, I feel like this year a lot of legislation's coming that doesn't involve portable benefits, but portable benefits are being used to pitch it and sell it. But what does that mean to me? Maybe I'm reading too far ahead, but to me that means that this is round one. Round two will be, now let's get the portable benefits in there. So, I mean, like, why not just do it right out of the gate? It's the same thing as the definition.
Right.
Let's quit trying to pay people 50 cents a, I'm not exactly sure on the amount of money they're putting in, but the fact that people can now work for Lyft, do all these other ways of income, and all of that applies into their portable benefits, no matter what they then go to do, so that when it comes to retirement, they still can pull out.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to figure out, is because like in 2023, I worked for 9 different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So like how
there should be a centralized brain that lets them know, hey, she's earning from all these, but at the same time, they recognize that, well, yeah, but you're not paying into the system. And it's like, yeah, but I'm an independent contractor and I'm paying through the roof on taxes. Well, I mean, you can, if you're smart, you can write off a lot. Sure. But my point is like, you're not, look, if you don't, most gig workers don't do quarterly taxes. Most of them get the hammer right now in January when it's the worst month. Every year. Right. But I'm saying like a lot of, so I mean, when you were kind of nodding there though about it, like really people who go this route, do end up in tax trouble. Because when it rolls around, they don't have the money to pay it.
Right.
Whereas like if you have a W-2, it's being pulled out every week for you.
Well, to those,
you still have to do your taxes at the end of the year, but right. And I agree, like keep getting smarter about it. But at the same time, like there should be a way that you're paying into something,
Right. Like, and you can go do, you can go and create your own 401k. You can go do everything that you could have with a W-2. You just have to go find it on your own. You have to go find your own health insurance. You have to open your own 401k. You know, those things are still available to you as a gig worker. It's just that you have to be a little more proactive about it and go find it, and nobody else is paying into it like a company 401k, you know, where they're contributing. Obviously, we wouldn't have anybody else to contribute except ourselves. So there is that difference.
Yeah, I will have to pull up Utah's bill, because I'm gonna put it on my list for talking about New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Chicago legislation. We'll put this one in there too, because it's probably the perfect contrast. But I do need to find the actual bill itself, because and I'm sure it's easy to find because it's got its Senate bill number. It's passed in May. But yeah, even here it just says it just keeps talking about how this is a great thing, but it doesn't really say what you're looking for, the amounts or percentages. What are these gig companies kicking in?
Right. I mean, and how is that working exactly? So I definitely do want to learn more about it, because
I would imagine I remember the initial ones that they're not still around, but of portable benefit models were just like, they were like the matching 401ks. It was like, if you put money in, the companies match them.
And I guess if you work for 9 apps, you can have
well,
9.
so like, okay, so
work?
The original model was like, let's say you work for, let's keep it a little easier. Let's say it's 2. Say you work for Uber and Lyft. And let's say that it's 50%, 50%. And you put in 5,000 and you've worked equal hours on both platforms, each of them would pay half match.
Right. That I understand. With 2 is easy to figure
and
out.
And with 9, each of them would pay they would, my guess is, the simplest way I can think of it's like, you would total all your hours. You would total the hours you did on what platforms. That's your percentage. And then there'd be a number tied to each hour.
I guess I'm looking at it from their perspective of, they have all of these drivers that work multiple apps, and for them to have to figure all that out just seems like a lot.
Maybe just the metric of like how much Instacart is used in this zip code, how much DoorDash, how much Uber, and then kind of total out the percentages that they pay into the system. Again, I don't know the schematics.
I'm just going to look that up, because there has to be.
But again, other legislation's coming up this year that's still, just because it's coming up doesn't mean it's happened. A lot of it will happen though, but it still has to be adopted. This is adopted. This is a law. This is already in place.
Hopefully these kind of things will spread to other states, and they'll see that there is another solution besides.
Right. And again, guys, like we'll be talking about with other things, like it might not be this. It might not be Utah Bill 233 is the way every state needs to go, but it's something so different and so important that every state should be looking at it to see if it can be modified into something better.
Right.
Because the way that if I had to pick this or New York, I'd pick this. I'd pick something where either 100%. If I'm paying in or whatever, they're matching, because that shows me longevity too. The right. 30 cents a minute model shows me that they are trying as quickly as possible to replace me with a robot. Yeah. So, to be honest, like I don't even want that. I'm more about like hearing. I guess it's even just hearing. I'm more about hearing something that makes sense to me. Like, okay, I want to do that. Not like these, because the other ones just I can see the rub though. I can see the scam right out of the gate. I'm like, no, this is BS. And that I feel like is just the stuff to delay and shut people up and get labor groups off their back. But this is like true. Hey, what about people when they want to retire? Yeah, because if 40% of the American public are independent contractors, and I know they're not all in the gig economy, but a lot of independent contractors and even W-2 people do work in the gig economy part-time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you got to add that in too. So I don't know. You can't have an undefined space. You can't have no benefits to that. And we're going to end up with decades of people without benefits.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you guys think like health care and prescription costs are high now, wait till these decades of people get there and they have no money. They have no system.
Right. I mean, healthcare is huge. I mean, luckily for myself, I have a husband that has a job that gives us health insurance. But if I was a gig worker and had to go find my own health insurance, that would be a whole nother issue, you know. So
Yeah.
I feel for people that are in that position because that's
but these portable benefits help you with things like that too, or have the ability to. I can't say that Utah's does with it. I would imagine it does something towards medical, but I don't know. My guess is there's different. It's probably like other insurance too, that you probably have different options. Do you want full medical now, or are you 22 and you only need like catastrophic in case, you know, or whatever. I mean, like,
right.
You know, maybe there's different plans as you come into this. I'm not really sure. We know that in California under AB5, nobody gets any of the plans. I mean, barely anybody's benefiting from those health plans. And most people who do accrue the right amount of hours to get them choose California's EDD anyway. They just take California's healthcare system over it because it's cheaper and it's basically Obamacare, and that's all they're getting. They're getting Obamacare with an Uber bow on it out there.
Gotcha.
I gotta
tell you, the Obamacare is pretty good.
Right, that's what I mean. But I mean, like, that's my point. Like, why does Uber need to sell you Obamacare at the same price you can go get it in the marketplace for yourself? To make you think the company Uber's helping you? Because they're not. Right.
Well, I can tell you with my son's situation the last 3 years that we would be millions of dollars in debt had it not for Obamacare. Millions of dollars.
I mean, I'm not going to give that kind of advice here today, but I mean, I would obviously, just a general thing I'd say is people, you should not be, I mean, no matter what your age, you should be somewhat insured, catastrophic even, but then as you get older, other things, like, you should always be looking at that, because one bad thing could like make you bankrupt for the rest of your year or your life.
Right. 100%.
Or like Holly said, like one medical thing, one situation that puts the medical bills so out of reach, you could never dig out of the hole. Mm-mm. If you didn't have some kind of insurance. Well, that's a wrap for the week, folks. We got through a couple of these subjects. But the main thing is that I want to talk about legislation for the next few weeks anyway, because a lot of the other legislation isn't going to be about this. It's actually bad stuff. I don't think this is a bad one. And I'll get my facts on 233 together so that when Mike and I talk, maybe he can point out why there might be some errors there or what the high points would be. And, but yeah, guys, I want to thank Holly for joining me this week. Remember to check out her YouTube channel. It is Savvy Shopper Delivers, and you can find it in the show notes. No matter where you're listening to this, anywhere in the world, any podcast player. And
if you want to listen to Steve and I's show on YouTube, you go under the live tab on my channel, and that's where all of our shows are listed.
Yep. On the playlist. And then watch for one. I'm sure we'll get one coming up here soon. But let's see, what else do we got? So yeah, check out Holly's channel. Help kick her to 1K because she's really close, guys.
45 away.
Yeah, like I almost, I really was done doing this, and I did it at the end of the year for Cheyenne and Holly. But I'm done plugging YouTube. Even though a lot of you guys are now telling me that you do sometimes go there and listen to things, I just don't often do it. But she's so close. Help her get over there. But yeah, be safe, earn smart. And we will see you back here next week on Rodeo.
All right. Thanks for having me.